What is up, everybody? This is your weekly episode of the Huddle House, and just here for your Huddle Buddies news. I'm a little bit more somber this week. I will try to keep my vigor and enthusiasm, but I think we're gonna let some of that enthusiasm and vigor go to the other two guys on this show, and I'll throw it right to them. So, first off, how you doing, Ty?
Hey man, I'm doing well. Happy to be here. Been looking forward to this episode. It's been a long time coming, and we're finally making it happen.
Yeah, thanks for killing it last week and filling for me. I was just really busy last week, and props to Marcus and Mitri for being great guests. And we got another guest on this show, and he's on a hot streak. He's had a good week, and got to give credit where credit's due. So, welcome to the Huddle House to the Power Scrubs, Jake Clark.
Yeah, can't say I'm too disappointed in my team like some others. You know who you are. I think someone took a photo this past week of putting 12th, 13th, and 14th place at a football game sitting together when none of them are actually in 14th place. It would be our host. So,
Yeah,
And you know what else to go along with that? The one who sent the picture, I think, is right down there with him. Actually, I
yeah,
think
he's in 13th.
yeah.
that was
Or 12th, maybe. I don't know. We're all three having a rough go of it. You're playing good, Jake. I gotta give props for props to do. You scored 137. I mean, even if I had played a little better, still don't think I could have gotten the win unless I just had a miraculous week. And week one, take the L to Jeremy, who puts up 145. I mean, there's no excuse for week two, that lousy performance. But for the most part, I've just been running into some buzzsaws. Don't know what to say, but it's a marathon, not a sprint.
let's just talk about this because I'm interested to know what this is feeling like for you, Jake. Because we come from last season when I think you won all of 2 games. You've already topped your win total from last year, one of which was against me, and I'm already one of your victims this year. I can't seem to shake you for some reason. You got my number, man. But what's it like to be at the top of the rankings as opposed to kind of where you were last year, all the way at the bottom?
Well, I think last year, James is in a similar situation. He has McCaffrey this year. And now it's going to have to battle the injury plague of trying to win games with the biggest injury to your team. You took that top guy. I think the difference is James has kind of tooled his team a little better than mine. And he makes a lot of trades, which I keep saying to him every time he makes a trade. I'm like, oh, I'm expecting it. I think the difference for me this year is I drafted much better. I think I pieced my team together a lot better. And I don't know. I just think they've been hot right now. I've had a couple close ones. You were close to me. If Hawkinson doesn't catch a touchdown, if Robert Woods doesn't catch a touchdown week one, I'd probably lose 2 games there. And then Matt this week, he just had one or two guys just kind of fall short. And it wasn't like it was a crazy big win for me. You still have a close one this week. So I think the difference this year is just having a better team pieced together and more depth.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I guess just did you know immediately this was a better team than what you drafted last year? Because I know last year was the infamous Mahomes and Lamar Jackson at the turn. You took both the top quarterbacks. So I know that had to make things feel a little weird after the draft compared to this year.
He kept saying it was just the only reason he drafted bad last year was because he was at work. And I think so far he's actually backing it up that maybe being at home made a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did, because drafting from your phone versus getting to just sit there on your laptop, actually just take your time making the picks, I think that's what made the biggest difference. I think one of the things that I think hearing last week, because y'all did those final takes last week, I think y'all went 0 for 3 on those hot takes.
Yeah, Mitri said somebody is going to combine for 70 points, or what do you say? 100
Yeah,
points?
well, Jeremy scored 70, but Lucas blew everybody out of the water.
Yeah, that was such a disrespectful take. I had totally forgotten about that. Yeah, the hot takes, they all short. I wanted to go back to the draft though, because we talked about that a little bit, and just your thought process behind some of your picks. Like in the first round, you traded out of your 7 slot, and I think that might be one of the things that had led me to believe you have such a powerful team after the draft, was having that extra 5th round pick. I think that went a really long way. But who you took, I think it was at 9, right? You traded back to 9.
Yeah,
Took DK. How was that decision? Was that one that you wrestled with, or was that like he's the easy choice?
I think I wrestled with it for a little while because I know James and Marcus would even say, like, Marcus kept trying to figure out who you're going to take, and James the same way. Is like, I had discussed with James some. I talked to my uncle, just kind of get his mindset because he had played Dynasty before, and I was just like, you know what, like, let me just piece all the advice, take some advice from people, see what they think. And I was just going between Tyreek, DK, and Zeke, and I was like, who's going to have a longer career, who's had the most consistent quarterback play. And yes, Mahomes was like the top quarterback in the league, but Russell Wilson chucks the ball a lot. And I just kind of felt like DK, he's a big target. And I just felt like he was the better pick because I think with the format, PPR, and all that, like Tyreek's more a big play threat. I don't think he catches as many passes, but this year DK's kind of been slow to start. So we'll kind of see how that plays out.
He came around last game though. He had a pretty solid performance.
Yeah. I think Matt was falling victim to my extra 5th round pick, though, this past week with Kareem Hunt.
Kareem, he had a great game.
I mean, what are the chances that Nick Chubb has like 16 carries and only gets like 40 yards, and Kareem has the game of his Browns career the 1 week that I need him not to? It's just like, come on, man. I mean, Kareem's a great player. I expected him to get around 10 or 12, but I didn't think he was going to get 24 with 2 touchdowns. Or he might have had 1 touchdown, but he had like 10 catches or something like that.
One. He had 81 yards and 1 touchdown, and then 6 catches for 74 yards. That's a dang good game.
He was unbelievable. And I mean, I absolutely loved your Eckler pick. I was eyeing Eckler in the back of the second. I didn't know if he was going to fall. I was praying he would, but apparently if you didn't take him, Mitri said he would have. So I guess it was a pipe dream to get him in the first place. But that's the downfall of doing that many mocks, is he fell to me in almost every single mock. So I kind of figured that there was a chance Eckler would be on the board for me, and I really wanted him. So definitely a home run hit there. He's kind of almost like a McCaffrey Jr. with the amount of targets he gets, and he's been balling out for you.
Yeah, he has. I mean, I think the riskiest thing about it was the injury stuff. That's kind of where I was like, okay, that's why I took some 1-year rentals. That's why I tried to pick his backup. Apparently, I picked the wrong backup, but
you never know with them. You never know.
Yeah. The Chargers backfield after Austin Eckler, it's just very messy. So it's like it was worth a gamble taking one of his backups later in the draft. And then, Hawkinson, probably my biggest risk, picking him 1 round earlier than most mocks were taking him and most people were saying. And so far it's played well. And I think even Ty last week is saying, hey, that may be the big difference maker for Jake's team.
I think it really was, because I mean that's one of those guys who everybody says he's going to take the next step, and when he actually does, it's a huge lift to a team. And I've really been impressed by the Lions in general, their offense, because I'm pretty invested in them with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. I have their backfield, and their offense is pretty capable. I mean, they've been moving the ball mostly through those 3 players. But it's not like they're just a fantasy wasteland like I think people thought they were going to be, maybe at the wide receiver position, but I think those pieces are valuable. I know Hawkinson didn't really do much this past week, but they can move the ball down the field at least. So that's been a pleasant surprise, I think. So yeah, I just really like the way you constructed your team, and I think you've had some pieces that have kind of arrived a little early also, like Javonte Williams coming into pretty much an equal split in that Denver backfield, which everybody thought it might take a little bit longer. That's also the stuff that I think helps propel a team to a 3-0 start. I mean, what have you been seeing from Javonte that's inspired you, or how do you feel about that pick now?
I feel pretty good. I mean, I think Matt made his trade just like an hour ago, because he sees.
And no one's even mentioned it.
Yeah. No one mentioned. Yeah, like I had to mention that right away because like that tells me that like I kind of see him taking over fairly soon, but I think at the same time Melvin's still producing, so like I think hopefully towards the back end of the season, he has like an Antonio Gibson like run where he kind of just starts playing really well at the end of the season. So I just started him, against Matt because I figured the matchup situation was good. So if he has easier matchups, he's worth playing this season.
Smart thinking. And I guess we can segue to Matt's trade. That seems like a natural bridge because I was trying to talk to Matt about it before we started recording, and he said he wanted to save it for the show. So Matt, talk to his trade. Where was your mindset here? It was AJ Green and Melvin Gordon for Odell Beckham with Mitri.
Yeah, so I've had intentions of moving Melvin for about a week and a half. I wasn't super like inspired by the pick when I drafted him, but I think you remember being right after me, Ty. Like that was a wasteland at running back, and we both went very similar strategies of going RB, first and second rounds, and then just not taking one till the eighth. And so it was more just a pick of necessity of like I have to take a running back here, or like it's going to drop off really bad, and we're going to get into like third stringers and rookies and stuff like that. And so it wasn't like a super inspired pick. He's actually been amazing for me so far in the first 3 weeks. He's probably been my most consistent running back.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen a lot of great things from Javonte. And I mean, I knew with the draft capital they spent on Javonte that he was going to be their future. And I kind of viewed Melvin as a really solid, like 1-year rental. But I do expect, like what Jake was saying, I expect Melvin to be pretty good up until about week 11, week 12. And I think it would still be good for maybe even next year as far as like viable. But I think it's going to become less of a 50-50 split and more of like a 60-40 split, maybe even 70-30, by the end of next season, where Melvin's kind of just in there as like a kind of like a plug and play, here and there. And I just didn't, in a redraft league, I wouldn't have made this trade because I think Melvin's steadier, but like it's a dynasty league, have to think about the future. Not like Odell has the greatest future necessarily, but I just feel like there's more possibility that Odell has 2 or 3 years of fantasy value where I felt like Melvin might only have one. But also props to Mitri because I know with Jacobs being, kind of a wild card right now, and also Mitri being a very running back heavy player, and also having Cooper, Kupp, Thielen, and Waddle already being pretty set at receiver, I think he made a good trade on his end to just, add to his running back depth and have a guy he can play in his flexes that's consistent, reliable. Mitri is definitely trying to win now, and I think Melvin does help him in the short term. As far as AJ Green goes, AJ Green's 33. I mean, he had a good week in my flex, and he was actually decent in week 2, but he was mostly just thrown in there because Mitri didn't want to do a 1-for-1 deal, and he wanted a receiver, and I wasn't wanting to give up like Gabriel Davis or someone like that. So I just kind of was like, here, you can have AJ. I know he's good for right now, but he's, like I said, he's 33, so you can have him. And that was kind of the deal breaker that pushed him over the edge to want to do it. So I think it's a good deal. I think Odell has a lot of upside, and we'll see how it goes. He's definitely a wild card, and he's a huge risk, but I just didn't think Melvin had the long-term viability that Odell could. So I had to do what I had to do.
All right, I see where you're coming from there. I mean, so did you approach him or did he approach you about this one?
I approached him. I knew that Odell was on the trade block. I'd been trying to trade with people for like, I don't know, a couple days in regards to Melvin, just seeing what was out there. It wasn't like I was desperate to get rid of him because, I mean, he had been pretty good, but it was just kind of like, I knew that this was a good time to sell Melvin because he'd been good for 3 weeks in a row. And, like his trade value was probably higher than it's going to be by week 7 or 8 if he has some bad weeks and Javonte starts kind of taking over. Then I knew Melvin's trade value would plummet. So I knew that this was kind of the time, if there was any interest in him whatsoever, this would be the time to look for those offers. So I kind of hit up 3 or 4 teams, maybe 5. A couple of them just said absolutely no way, didn't want anything to do with them. One guy just didn't respond. Then Mitri finally hit back up, and I was like, this might be the best offer I'm gonna get. If I want to move him, this is my chance. So I had to jump on it.
I mean, I think Odell showed a lot last week. I was honestly surprised for him coming off the injury and his first game back in a long time. And even before he was hurt, I didn't think he was that that great in Cleveland, but man, the one thing I noticed about him is no matter what happens to him, those hands are always going to be there. His hands
They're
are.
always there. And he's a pretty good route runner. He's still got some burst. I mean, his first year in Cleveland, he was actually wide receiver 25, which wasn't, I mean, jaw dropping, but not horrible. Like he's clearly a viable fantasy starter at wide receiver 25. That's like that's like wide receiver 2, in a 12-team league just about. So I mean, last year he was wide receiver 88, but that was because he was injured all season. So, like he still has a lot of upside. I mean, and also with Jarvis Landry being out, definitely kind of a wasteland with the Higgins, Schwartz kind of group. I think his biggest threat for targets is Austin Hooper, and that's not like a super inspiring player to be
No.
threatened by. So I think there's a huge target share, available there for Odell.
Oh, for sure. I think we saw the wasteland get traded away to Chris's team, I think, from Marcus. So I just put it that way, that I think so far, like the biggest trade, I think, win of the season early on, I think, is going to Marcus. But I don't know, Matt. I think you got a good trade here. I think Odell is going to be pretty solid. I think your points exactly to the injuries and competition, and I don't know. I think AJ Green has too much competition. I mean, Christian Kirk, the first week he caught a touchdown, and then I mean Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk are kind of going to interfere with AJ Green's productivity. So I kind of think Mitri just got himself just a regular average wide receiver that's probably just going to be maybe like a bye week fill-in. And then Melvin, like you said, he may be a flex play, but I think once he gets Josh Jacobs back, there's a good chance that Melvin may not even be in the lineup with that stack of wide receivers he has.
Yeah, that was definitely my thinking. And actually, I appreciate Jake giving me a compliment for once, but he actually hit me up before the show and was like, texting me and was like, I think that was a good trade. And I was like, he made a trade before the draft where I thought the one with Lucas where he traded back, got the 5th rounder. And I texted him and was like, good trade. So, we might be throwing some jabs at each other, but there's still some mutual respect there when someone makes a decision that the other guy likes. So it's not as nasty of a hatred as people might think it is, but you did throw some digs at me in the offseason, and I'm gonna pay you back for those, Jake. It might take a year or two, but you're gonna get your comeuppance.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it. I'm expecting it. I mean, I feel like Ty has some more comeuppance just because I've gotten him the past 2 years, but we keep it pretty mutual between me and him. We kind of may cheer each other on every once in a while, but I think it's either Marcus or you that I'm probably going back and forth with for the most part, and then Chris just likes to attack me. So
I do. I like that you're leaning into the villain card this season though, and kind of embracing that role in the chat, just like sending these messages. I don't remember what it was, but you said something to Marcus over the past weekend, and I knew he was very upset about the loss, and you still just threw in some message and like tagged him in the chat, and I was like, man, he's just, or maybe it was at Matt, I don't remember, but I think it was at Matt.
I don't think it was me. I
Well,
don't think.
like you're not out of it or something like that when you were down by like 40 or something like.
No, yeah, no. Jake texted me and was like, you might have a shot tonight on Monday Night Football. I'm like, dude, I'm down by like 56. Like Dak's gonna have to go for like 34, and Devontae's gonna have to have like a 22-point bomb or something like that. I'm like, it's possible, but that's like the most
how many points that were scored in that game, you would have thought that was the outcome, but instead it was defense and special teams scoring touchdowns, and then it was just Ezekiel Elliott just taking off.
Yeah.
Yeah, last night was a weird game. So many points.
The Cowboys offense, like, if Zeke can be solid, and I'm still not worried about Dak because that Cowboys offense scored so many points that Dak still had 3 TDs. So it's like, it's like there's still Zeke can get one here and there, and it's not really gonna affect Dak too much. I think he has a floor most weeks of about 20, so I can live with him.
Well, let's transition to another thought here because we had the idea presented to us to create updated power rankings after 3 weeks of the season. And I think Matt came up with a list. I've got the actual standings up here in front of me, but also thought, Jake, your input might be pretty good on this considering you're kind of at the top of the pyramid right now.
Yeah.
So, all things considered, I'm not sure what Matt's power rankings are or how his would go. But I can say that I guess do you want to start at the top or do you want to start at the bottom?
I'll start at the bottom. And I can just about promise you that Jake's going to love and agree with my number 14 because my number 14 is myself. I, I'm a I'm a humble realist. I'll acknowledge when my team is freaking trash. I don't beat around the bush with that. I'm gonna move up. I'm confident. I told Jake I'm not worried about it. I'm like, it's a marathon. My team's gonna grow into its form. But right now I'm in some growing pains. So I deserve to be 14.
Okay. 14. I think that's there's a few other
I
0-3 options you could have gone with there. You didn't have to put yourself. Respect the humility there, and I'm interested to hear where you go next. I mean,
yeah. I mean, well, think though, like Jeremy's team back-to-back weeks has put up real stinker totals, and he even pointed out in the chat he's the lowest scoring team. So even though he's 1-2, like he could even be considered in that mix.
Yeah,
I don't
he can.
agree with that.
What do you say, Ty?
I don't disagree with that, and I think that all comes back to AJ Brown. I mean, he's been terrible this year, like an absolute bust, and he's hurt now. So,
Well, and also, I don't think you'd expect that Tyreek Hill, like, obviously he decides to go off against me. I mean, I expected nothing less. But the other 2 weeks against the Ravens and then this past week, Tyreek has actually been kind of underwhelming. I'm not worried about Tyreek Hill. I'm not trying to make that claim because Tyreek is still Tyreek and he's going to go off so many weeks. But that's really hurt Jeremy when one of his first round pick and who's supposed to be like his top guys put up single digits pretty much 2 weeks in a row and underperformed. That's just going to hurt a guy when, your two receivers you took first 2 rounds both kind of throw out clunkers to start the year. So
yeah, and I think also with Jeremy's team, it's tough. It's a good example of not having consistent tight end play, how that can really hurt a team. And I think it's one of the things I was most fearful of going into the draft is because I never knew where the right spot was to draft a tight end. Because you want to get something either that's going to be consistent and you don't have to think about as much. And whenever you have he has Cole Kmet and Conklin on the Vikings, like Kmet's got competition with Jimmy Graham, and that offense only got like 60 yards. It was definitely growing pains this past week. Conklin had a good game, but is that just a one-off? I think it speaks to the importance of having that consistent tight end play and how rare it is and hard to find. So I think that's something else that stands out to me about his team.
yeah. I still like his team. I think it'll get better once Michael Carter kind of fully establishes his role. Sanders is a hit or miss running back. Like he definitely has holes at running back and tight end, but I think it's you'd be hard pressed to be convinced that Tyreek, AJ Brown, and Amari Cooper won't bounce back and recover from their past 2 weeks of underperforming. And that alone, along with having, a pretty solid quarterback with wait, who's Jeremy's quarterback? I'm blanking. Yeah, Stafford. Who's been phenomenal. And having some other good options. I think Jeremy's still got a great roster, just needs a little bit more out of his running backs and tight end.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so my 13 is currently Marcus, and my number 12 is Jeremy. So just getting Jeremy out of there. Those two are kind of neck and neck, but I just gave Jeremy the slight edge because he has a win. And Marcus
what about
is
your thoughts on Marcus?
Blow me quite out of the water. What?
Let's talk about Marcus's team then.
Yeah,
I like Marcus's team.
He has a solid team as I'm looking at it here. I think I think again it kind of comes down to the tight end play being like a sore spot. I mean, I thought he was upgrading going to Jonnu Smith from Hooper, and I was like, okay, he won the trade because of that. But really, the only reason he's won the trade is because of Henry Ruggs looking like really good with the Raiders. Because Jonnu hasn't done anything since he's got him, and that's kind of been a problem with the Patriots offense in general.
Yeah.
I think that definitely is something that's hurting him each week. Because I mean, if you look at his numbers this week, he had really consistent performances, solid across the board. And then there's that ugly 0.9 from Jonnu, and I think he lost by like 4 points or something like that. He almost still pulled it out. Obviously San Fran losing 3 points
Yeah.
Or he started what defense did he start? I thought he started the Raiders defense
Yeah, he started the Raiders, and the Raiders gave up points at the end of the game or something like that.
So that's a tough break. But I mean, I don't know what it is because I do like his team. I think it's just it hadn't gotten it done these past few weeks by whatever circumstance. Opponent playing well, different situation. I think whenever I'm thinking of the 0-3 teams, he's not one that comes to mind just because I know that I liked his roster. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, I think too, like he's gonna have I'm not gonna be shocked if he's bidden on the waiver wire, for a tight end because I kind of think like that's gonna be his pivot, like you said, like that's his weakness right now. And I think there's a couple good options out there. I mean, I don't know if I should be throwing out names or not.
Maybe we should just maybe we should
don't throw any names, Jake. That's terrible.
But I'm not gonna ruin his moves, but I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't be shocked if he's throwing some bids here and there,
Yeah.
But I mean, I think even like someone like Marcus, he's gonna have to make some sort of move, I think, to just get out of this rut. Because like Matt said, his team's going through growing pains, and I think his team's gonna be one of the better teams come the end of the season.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just also clarifying, like my rankings are mostly just based on what we've seen so far, not really how good I think the teams are. If I'm going off just future and how good I think the teams are, Marcus is probably in the upper half. Like I think Marcus has a great roster, just kind of going off of what I've seen so far. And that's why I had to put him at 13 just because 338 point total. Just had some clunkers of weeks. Week 1 was horrible for him, and having some underperformers is just kind of what has to put him at 13. Jeremy at 12, and then 11 I have Mitri. I gave him the edge over Jeremy because Mitri's actually put up 360 points in 3 weeks. That's 120 a week. Like he's had some good weeks. Week 1 he was similar to me where he put up like 145 and lost. So, I think Mitri's team is actually performing pretty good. He just can't seem to buy a win. But I like what I'm seeing, and I still have to put him at 11 because I like the roster, and I absolutely love what he's getting from his receivers with Cooper Kupp, Adam Thielen. Waddles look promising. Like he's got some good things there, and I like David Montgomery and Nick Chubb. So
yeah, Mitri, very solid team. I love his running backs, and he really hit on his wide receivers he took. Even Cole Beasley's been that PPR machine we thought he was going to be coming into the season. I think really his team's waiting on a quarterback, man. And we were waiting to see it from Justin Fields, and it was anything but pretty much. So I think that's what is ultimately holding this team back. Like usually when I hear 0-3, I think, not great quarterback play. And I think that's kind of the case with this. He has a lot of really good pieces. It's just waiting on that quarterback to emerge, and hasn't done it yet.
Yeah, I mean, I was guilty in one of my other leagues of Justin Fields. I had the same confidence that I thought Mitri had, and it kind of just didn't work out this week for him. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to see kind of what he does there, seeing if he's going to flip back to his other guy. So
yeah, it looked like he had Jimmy G in there starting.
The tough thing is he has Montgomery and Fields, so he's putting a lot of stock in the Bears offense, and I mean, that's understandable because the Bears offense looked really promising coming into the season, but what we've seen with the offensive line and the play calling and just confidence in Matt Nagy or whatever, it's just so far, even Allen Robinson, as good as he is, has looked really mediocre. So I just feel like as of right now, the Bears are in a massive offensive slump, and it's not looking like a payoff yet to invest in the Bears.
Let's keep the tempo here. We only have 9 minutes left in our meeting, so I guess
we're gonna have to go real fast. Okay,
let's start off some teams. Let's hear the rest of your list right now.
Yeah. So I have Chris at 10. I actually like Mitri's team slightly more, but Chris has a win. That's the only reason I put him over. He's had 2 really bad clunker weeks that he's got to get past, but still got a good roster. Needs an RB2. Then number 9, I have Austin. Najee's looking like a beast so far, so he's got that going for him. And he lucked into Chuba and Tyson Williams both being on his roster.
How about that? Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty fortunate. Number 8, I got Jordan. Great running backs, both performing.
Man,
Definitely some holes everywhere else, but
he probably was so upset Sunday after the way that game ended. So
It was so close.
I knew the Sunday night I was up like 25, and he had Packers D and Aaron Jones, and I'm thinking like, I might have a shot, like as long as Aaron Jones doesn't have a good game. So I'm watching it, and then the Green Bay's pitching a shutout. San Fran has 0 points at halftime, and then I think Aaron Jones scored right before halftime. Then I'm losing by like 4 or 5 to go into halftime. So I'm like upset. I turn the game off. I'm like, screw this. I'm like, whatever. I'm so frustrated by it. I'm like, come on, man. Jimmy G can't get anything done for me. So I come back here. I'm just hanging out. I check the score when it gets in the fourth quarter, and I see that San Fran scored like 21 points. I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, wait a minute. I check the game. I'm winning by 4 again. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I go out and turn it back on the TV. There's like 4 minutes left in the game. And the first play I see is Jimmy G gets strip sack fumbled, and then Aaron Jones catches like a 15-yard pass, and then I'm losing by 1 again. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like as soon as I turn it on. And then obviously they went down and scored a touchdown to take the lead take the lead in the game and put me over the edge. And then Green Bay had that crazy 3-play getting field goal range thing. And the whole time I'm praying, like, just please don't check it down to Aaron Jones. Like, please don't check it down. And sure enough, they didn't. So, I mean, it was definitely one of the wildest finishes I had. I felt bad for Jordan. I felt better for me getting the win, but I knew that had to be gut wrenching. I mean, I lost off a stat correction last year, and I know how terrible that felt. So
I remember that. That was horrible.
yeah, because it almost knocked me out of the playoffs last year. Like it put me on the border there. But yeah, that's Jordan's team. Very impressive. I lucked out with Kyler Murray. I mean, he only had 18, and he'd been having 33. So I definitely skated by on a week that Kyler was off.
Yeah.
And I love his Christian Kirk play and the flex. Man, Christian Kirk's awesome. And Cordero Patterson's been surprisingly like a bright spot, the only bright spot in Atlanta pretty much. So I think he's got a solid team he's working with.
He's one piece away, I think.
All right, Matt, didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to get that tangent in there. Go ahead, keep cranking your list.
Yeah, you're good. I'm going to have to really mow through these. So number 7, I have Lucas. Wide receivers have actually kind of underperformed for him so far. I expect that to change, but Saquon finally looked a little bit more like Saquon this week, so I'm sure that's encouraging. Still like Jalen Hurts, had a bad week, but I think he's still a great player. So yeah, like Lucas's team, just had some inconsistencies that puts him at 7. Number 6, Brandon. I mean, gosh, got to give Brandon his props. We were talking about him as one of the bottom teams in the league this year because of that running back plays he was going to be fielding. But Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb are just looking absolutely phenomenal. And the Josh Allen pick so far isn't looking all that stupid because Josh Allen, is playing great. So Brandon's team is balling out. Like
arriving early, and you got to think he's got Dobbins and ETN coming up next year. So like this is going to be a powerhouse team, man. Like Jamar Chase looks like a superstar. So he definitely drafted well.
Yeah. And we might have questioned it a little bit on draft night just because of what he was feeling at running back, but he was playing chestnut checkers. He had some faith in some of these guys to keep him competitive this year, and they're doing it. So props to him. He's definitely got a scary team for the future, and I'm sure he's sleeping well at night knowing what he has to look forward to.
All right, next.
Number 5 is Carter. I really like what I'm seeing from Carter's team. I think he's got some steals. Rondale Moore looks like a steal on his bench. Zeke finally looked like Zeke this week. I don't mind Tannehill at quarterback. I think that's perfectly serviceable. He's got good flex plays with like guys like Deebo Samuel balling out. I mean, Carter's got a solid team right now.
DJ Moore, he looked amazing Thursday.
Yeah, TJ looked so good this week.
Every target, man. Sam Darnold on my bench, man. He just like eyeballs DJ Moore the whole way and just chucks it to him. It's his security blanket. It's his every play pass. It's literally done.
Must feel bad being a Robbie Anderson fantasy owner right now, just being like, when is this guy going to ever get a target? They're all going DJ.
Yeah.
But I regress. I got to keep moving on. We have 4 minutes left. So number 4, I got James. Definitely dealt with some major injuries. Took a big hit this week. I'm sure knowing James and his resiliency, he'll recover, figure something out. James Robinson looked like a valuable piece this week, at least. Still love the Gaskin side of it for Carter, but looks like a solid RB2. Still think James has a good roster.
Well, and I think one thing with his team, quick, I thought there was no way he can ride out Kirk Cousins like he's been doing, and Kirk's actually been doing really well. So I don't know if that's a ticking time bomb, but it seems like the Niners are kind of content to keep things the way they are with Lance. I don't know if I think they like using him as a little trick in there. I don't know when he might take over that starting job, but he's riding out with Kirk, and Kirk seems to be doing fine. So I didn't think that would play out as well as it has preseason.
Yeah, that is true. So tie number 3, I have you. I think that's a pretty good spot. I think you have a great roster. Travis Kelce's a beast. Love what you're getting out of the Lions backfield. They're both very valuable. And yeah, your RB1's good too. So
waiting on my wide receivers, man. Corey Davis has been killing me. Like Zach Wilson has single-handedly just ruining his value because they haven't scored a touchdown in 8 quarters of football. Like what? Madness.
Yeah, not good for fantasy value there.
Not good at all, man. So you're right. I think I looked into the Lions backfield. The fact that I can play Jamal Williams as a flex, and DeAndre Swift has been amazing this year. Target monster. So been really
yeah. Good team.
Let you finish this out. 2 more. Who's going to take number 2 and number 1?
So I gave Jake his props earlier in the show. He deserves it. Let's give him a little hand clap. He got the win over me this week. I will be buried in my grave before I ever put him as my number 1 in the power rankings. So I have to put him at 2 just out of pure spite and frustration.
There it is.
So good job on being 2. Still a good spot to be in. You're in the playoffs, but I will not put you at 1, Jake. I refuse.
I appreciate it because, hey, probably vice versa. And I mean, you're my number 14, so still.
Yeah, you're winning. So you're winning so far. But it's dynasty, man. It's not gonna last for long, man. I'll be back. But you're doing good so far. And number 1, man. I never would have thought I'd say this, but Caleb, give him his props, man. His flexes are insane. Brandon Cooks is balling out. Lockett's a crazy good flex. Obviously Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and the picking both Bucs receivers doesn't seem like a horrible decision at the moment. So Caleb's team is good.
Yeah, we gave Sam all kinds of slack. Maybe he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, maybe he knew what he was talking about.
All right, Matt, you got to set this home, man. We got less than 30 seconds here.
All right, so it's been a fun 3 weeks of the season for I'm sure a lot of you guys. It's been horrible for me, but I'm a fighter, and it's tough to keep me down. So I'm gonna make trades. I'm gonna pick up waiver guys. I'm gonna figure something out to jump out of this rut, and my guys are gonna eventually pan out. So I'm excited for the future, and I still have a lot of hope that the dynasty is gonna be everything that we were all hoping it would be. So far, it's been a blast, guys, and appreciate the both of you for just keeping it fun. Enjoy being the villain, Jake. I know that you're good at it.
I will.
All right.
Number 1.
We'll see y'all next week.
Yep. See you guys.
Peace.